Welcome to the Cappiello and Collins Show on YouTube with David Cappiello and Michael Collins. The show where the right wing never gets a pass and the right wing is always wrong. And now here are our hosts, David Cappiello and Michael Collins.
Good evening. Welcome to the Cappiello Collins Show, episode number 2. Today is September 16, 2008, and we are edging ever closer, and I believe in fact it's 6 months from this very day, which will be the last day of analog telecasting and a switch to all digital television broadcasting. Now, for people who have cable and satellite, that won't mean so much because the cable and satellite systems will be converting the signals so that your TV set will be able to receive them, even if it's an analog-only television set. But if you are using rabbit ears or you are using an outdoor aerial to receive your signals directly off the air, then you will have to make adjustments. First of all, you must have a digital television set, or you can have an analog set, but it needs a digital converter. Now, the government is handing out $40 coupons for every citizen of this nation. You'll need only to mail in for one. Now, another problem with all of this is that digital broadcasting has different characteristics than analog broadcasting. It does mean a much, much clearer picture so that you'll be able to see the tiniest detail on your television screen, but at the same time reception is more difficult. Now, earlier this month a test began in the North Carolina coastal city of Wilmington, North Carolina, and already viewers are reporting that they are unable to receive the digital signal, especially if they are not in Wilmington, if they're further away. And now the FCC chairman, Kevin Martin, is saying that viewers of many stations, and many stations across the country, will experience smaller coverage areas for their signals. Now, this is a particular problem because it deprives people who do not have the money for cable and satellite bills every month to pay those bills, to be able to receive television stations. And again, the airwaves belong to the public, and stations are licensed to serve the public interest, convenience, and necessity. Most people in this country depend on television for their news coverage. They depend on it to follow the presidential campaign, for example, and also state-level campaigns. And in bigger cities, mayoral campaigns, and also county governments in some areas. This test is going on in Wilmington, and I had felt that was not the best place for this test to take place because Wilmington, North Carolina, and coastal Carolina are pretty much flat as a pancake. And the real problems with digital, there are already problems reported in this area, which is a flat area, no mountains in that region. But in mountainous areas, there's going to be major problems. Analog TV signals are, in some cases, able to defy mountains and hills and make it to the other side of them, so that viewers can at least receive a snowy picture, or maybe even a pretty good picture, depending on their antenna and specific area. With digital TV, the signal either comes in very clearly or it just is knocked dead and there's nothing. Your TV set will just go to a blue screen and you won't see anything. And these signals are not going to be able to get over hilltops and mountains the way analog signals have been able to get over them. So, for most of the country, I think we don't know what's going to happen until the actual conversion takes place February 17. And many people are predicting a train wreck. Now, this is yet another situation where government is, people are relying on the government to help them through, to shepherd them through a situation, and government is letting them down. So we will just have to wait until February to see what happens, and then, as usual, the government will be responding. The government should be conducting tests now in mountainous areas, and Connecticut itself, where we're originating from, is a mountainous area. Anyone who has gone up Route 8 knows that the coastline of Connecticut is flat. For example, Stratford, where Route 8 originates. But then by the time you get up to even 5 or 7 miles up into Shelton and then Derby and Ansonia, the terrain becomes very rugged. And you can tell from your FM reception. If you have an FM radio in your automobile, you hear the so-called picket fencing phenomenon. You know, you've often heard of an FM signal. You have it tuned in and it goes. Well, that's because of the effect of the mountainous terrain blocking out the signal, and also the shadowing that occurs. Everyone has seen ghosts on TV. Now, all of these problems will be experienced to an even greater degree on digital television. So while in the short run it will be in some ways a benefit with much clearer pictures, and certainly the quality of pictures, and for people with cable and satellite that will not be a problem, and they're in a position to pay these ever more expensive cable bills. I believe in the last 10 years cable bills on the average have doubled in this nation. People who are relying on their antennas and on rabbit ears will be in trouble. Now, wrapping up, this issue is important for our freedoms because people today rely so heavily on television for news, for information, for political coverage, for even alerts about everything from contaminated foods to weather emergencies. The people who are being most affected in many cases are those without economic means. Most of the people who will be affected will be people in inner cities, minority people, elderly people who in many cases can't afford the steep bills from cable and satellite companies because they're further away from the transmitters of these stations, and further away from the city center where you have strong signals. And they also will be left without coverage from these stations, and left without an ability to receive these broadcasts. New York City, for example, it was revealed earlier this decade in the tragedy of the World Trade Center attack that as many as 1/3 of the residents of the city did not have cable television. And what that meant was that when those antennas, when the big TV antenna on top of the World Trade Center building came down, those people were left without reception. And interestingly, the station that had the greatest impact was Channel 13, WNET, the PBS station. A higher percentage of their viewers, a higher share of their viewers received their signal over the air without cable than any other of the New York City TV stations. But again, millions of residents in the city were affected by that. More than 2 million, as was reported at the time. So we're not talking about a small number of people here. We're talking about millions and millions of citizens across. We're going to have to wait until February 17, 2009, which is 6 months from tomorrow, to find out the full impact of this transition to digital-only television. This concludes this episode of the Cappiello and Collins Show. See you next time.